Loose Duke is one of the most iconic characters in the tabletop role-playing game actual play show Dimension 20. Hailing from Boston, New Texas of the Starstruck universe, this random side character quickly found lodging in many hearts and the player's spaceship. With his glittery teeth, whiny voice, and unpleasantly evocative name, combined with his place center stage in one of the show's most dramatic and silliest twists, Loose Duke rose the ranks and became one of D20's legendary non-player characters. Yet his status as a legend is not only in the pop culture meaning of the word, but also in its folkloric sense. In folklore, a legend is a type of narrative that engages with the possibility of belief. Think less Weird Al male legend and more Jonathan Frakes beyond belief urban legend. Loose Duke exists in this quantum state between belief and disbelief. But how did we get here? What makes Loose Duke's story so captivating? And why should anyone care? To understand that, we'll have to go back a little bit. The 13th season of Dropout.tv's TTRPG actual play show Dimension 20, A Starstruck Odyssey, follows the crew of the hot-dog-shaped spaceship called The Worst as they try to scrape their way through a tough, retro-futuristic sci-fi galaxy when they suddenly find themselves in the possession of, and in contention with, some of the greatest forces of their time. But none of that matters right now, because it is episode 7, they just made a lot of money kidnapping a dog, and they are landing in Boston, New Texas, baby. The crew takes a job to shake up a courier ransoming a package not too far out of town. The courier's name? Loose Duke. The crew don't like the person they're doing the job for and take some pity on Loose Duke and his 2 friends. They take them aboard the ship to bring them back to civilization, but tie them up so they can't pull anything. The crew of The Worst then kill the guy who hired them for the job, send the town's whole police force running, spend a couple days partying, and open a casino on their ship. At the grand opening of Barry's Big Win Casino, the eponymous Barry, played by Brian Murphy, remembers that Loose Duke is still on the ship and they haven't fed him in 3 days. They bring him out to join the party, and Loose Duke disappears. Despite the best efforts of the crew, the Duke remains on the loose. Of the 10 remaining episodes, Loose Duke is mentioned in 8 of them, yet never once confirmed to be on the ship.
You truly believe that Loose Duke is off of the show?
Nor is he denied to be.
He just wanted to get...
Despite constant attempts, the truth is not uncovered until the very last episode of the season.
On the bridge, you see an air vent grate explode up as Loose Duke jumps out of the air vent.
I told you all along. You were fighting for Loose Duke's brainstem.
I knew it.
You were willing to take over Loose Duke.
This is why. This is
He
why.
was incapacitated, so he was dead in the vents.
I knew it.
What's up, baby? It's space. Loose Duke's been on the ship the whole time.
So why is it that Loose Duke became a legend when so many others, including his 2 friends who do exist and were on the ship with him but are never addressed, simply get forgotten? To understand that, we must first understand the components of a legend. Aside from the possibility of belief, legends are often characterized by perceived credibility stemming from specific details, particularly time and place, having happened recently and nearby, having happened to a friend or equivalent degrees of separation, and arising in places of change and or fear. Addressing these in order, the legend of Loose Duke starts almost immediately after he disappears, and you can't get much more specific than, just a second ago. The real-world, in-universe location is The Worst, the ship Loose Duke is on, and also the ship that everyone lives on. A bonus detail is specifically knowing Loose Duke's name, which is what sets him apart from his vague and less important compatriots. The friend of a friend part is where it gets a bit more complicated. At first glance, it doesn't seem to fit. The characters are all physically present and active in Loose Duke's story. It happened to them, after all. But if we view legends happening to a friend as a consequence of a prerequisite, instead of as the prerequisite itself, it begins to make a little more sense. A certain amount of distance from the story is necessary for a legend to thrive. Too close and you just know the truth. Too far and the story falls apart. A friend of a friend is the perfect middle ground between not knowing all the details and knowing enough for it to be believable. But it isn't the only relationship that occupies this space. In tabletop role-playing games, the players cannot actually interact with the world themselves, and it is the role of the game master to bridge the gap between the reality and the fiction. For example, the player Emily Axford wants to look for Loose Duke. Emily, who cannot search this imaginary spaceship on account of it being imaginary, asks the game master, Brennan Lee Mulligan, if her character, Sundry Sydney, can make a perception check. Brennan, who has all the information because he controls the world, decides how well Sydney searched the ship and what she found based on the perception check that Emily rolled, and relays it to Emily. It is then understood that the information received is not necessarily complete or even correct, but that it is honest to what Sundry Sydney saw. This essentially creates the same 2 degrees of separation provided by a friend of a friend, even though the player's characters are directly involved. Equally, if not more complicated, is the fear piece. The characters are not affected by any social anxieties prevalent in the Starstruck universe because, despite its illustrious world-building, it does not account for the subconscious socio-cultural effects of current events on the characters. The players, however, are very much affected by social pressures. I'm sure a lot can be said about how the fanbase and recent global pandemic and many other things have an effect on the choices the players make in character, but I'm not sure any of that is as relevant as the pressures of performance. Performance, for our purposes, is defined as assumption of responsibility to an audience for a display of communicative competence or virtuosity. If you're telling a friend a joke, you're assuming the responsibility of saying something funny to your friend. If your friend laughs, you've displayed communicative competence. Congratulations. If they didn't laugh, you have failed your performance and your friend will probably never talk to you again. In TTRPG actual play shows like D20, there are many layers of performance happening at once, each of which comes with its own responsibilities. On a personal level, between the people at the table, there is an expectation of being a good scene partner, being a good combat partner, being a good partner in the collaborative story that they are telling. On a public level, between the people at the table and the audience at home, there are the responsibilities of being likable, being good at the game, being funny, being good at improv, among many more, all while hiding the scenes that would show it as a performance. Legends like Loose Duke arise to fill in places where at least one of these expectations is not being met. If we look at the scene where Loose Duke first escapes and consider what is being communicated on one or both of these levels of performance, we can see how an attempt at resolving a particularly loose end becomes one of the most iconic parts of the show.
Wait! We left Loose Duke!
Here, Murph is drawing attention to the loose end without breaking immersion and setting up the possibility for a joke.
Oh shit! Shit! Has anyone fed
He
Loose
needs
Duke?
to
Lou then jumps in on this, yes-anding the joke as any good improviser will do.
be here for this. I'm going to get Loose Duke to come to the opening. Great.
Oh my god.
Murph takes the opportunity to tie this back to the plot that's currently happening so they don't get too derailed.
You get Loose Duke. He's like, man, this party's incredible. Dude, who's that?
Brennan plays along with this and engages with this loose end so it can be properly tied up.
Who? Crunch?
Yeah,
It's
who's
Crunch.
that guy? You go to turn to Crunch, you turn, Loose Duke is gone. Loose Duke is fucking gone. Loose.
Murph once again plays along. Brennan, in order to allow everyone to move on, communicates that Loose Duke is not particularly important and not something they need to spend time on by just quickly saying, oh, he's gone. What you gonna do?
Wait, is he loose on the ship now?
Who knows?
Can I hunt him
Loose
down and
Duke.
kick him off?
As you're looking around, I'm gonna need a group stealth check.
Emily ignores the way Brendan is brushing this off and aims for a more substantial, satisfying ending. But when Brendan moves on to resolve more plot-relevant things, Emily lets it go. Brendan eventually acknowledges that Emily's character does go looking for Loose Duke, but it does not give a concrete ending. We can see how these extremely experienced players and improvisers are able to address all this in the scene without breaking immersion at any point and appearing seamless to the outside. But why does this matter, I hear you asking? Well, for one, I think it's interesting, and there's value in understanding how and why we tell these stories. But on a grander note, it's important to recognize how powerful legends can be, because here's the thing. Loose Duke wasn't on the ship until the legend took root.
We cut to somewhere else in Boston where Loose Skiff has been hit by one of the fleeing police cruisers. Man, come on!
Brennan tries to give Loose Duke a different ending, but the people don't believe it. His reality doesn't fit with the narrative they already have in their heads, so it doesn't matter. The world moves on, and the legend is the only story that's told until the truth fades out of existence and can be replaced. Legends in real life can't change reality, but if left unchecked, they can change how we perceive it. And in the end, isn't that basically the same thing?